I once did a self-defense course, hand-to-hand self-defense, and the guy teaching us was the same guy who taught Nelson Mandela's personal bodyguards hand-to-hand self-defense. So he was a real dude. This is a South African guy, seriously impressive guy, but only about 5 feet tall. Right? So, you know, clearly he had to use what he said a lot in his life. And after teaching us all these very interesting little techniques, which, you know, I'm very happy to know and hopefully never have to use, he said the one thing that will prevent you from getting attacked more than anything else is just being authentically confident. To walk authentically, you know, just be you. And he said, would you like to know the secret of being authentic? And he said, yeah, he started to get really in, you know, we were all leaning in, and he just goes, be authentic. And it's true, you can't really fake authenticity that well. So you just have to be authentic. So again, if you are going to pitch for the roof and you don't really think you're going to get there, like if you've got much more fear in you, then don't bother pitching that way because you're not going to make it. On the other hand, don't do this Irish thing that I see of, actually, you've got a fantastic company and you know you're going to get here, and you go, well, we'll sort of pitch down here, you know, because I see a lot of money left on the table in Ireland because people will go, oh, sure, you know, $5,000, that'll be fine. Customer's going to make $500,000 out of that $5,000. You know, I think you could do better. So don't be too humble. Just try and be authentic. Right? There's nothing more irritating than people who have either tons of false modesty or tons of false bravado. So try and get it as accurate as you can. And this is where numbers matter. You know, okay, it is true. You can make 5-year projections, and we all know that they are guesstimates. You can start to back those numbers up with tests. And the more you test your numbers, the clearer things will become. And today in the world, we have this wonderful ability to test just about any message, just about any product, just about anything online for almost no cost. Like, you know, one of my #1 uses for Twitter, and one of the reasons I built a Twitter following, was because I wanted to test messages. I often just throw stuff out onto my Twitter account and just see, does it get a retweet? Do I get pushback? Do I get people hostile? Do I get people complimenting me on it? And I look and I measure, you know, does this get 5 retweets? Does this get 1? Another great place that I look is Google, right? I put up an AdWord. You will find some of the most bizarre AdWords out there are on my Google account. Why? Because I put up a weird AdWord and then I'll just test messages over and over underneath that weird AdWord. Now the weird AdWords cost you almost nothing, right? They cost you, less than a cent a click. But that click tells you something. The frequency of the clicks tells you instantly whether people are picking up, not on the word, but on the message underneath it. And it doesn't even have to be relevant to the word if the message is compelling enough. So you can test your messages, you can test your value proposition. And everything you say in your story, that's what your customers want to hear. So you can test your story. And as I said before, go out into a shopping centre and doorstop people and test your messages and see, note down, write down the responses. Because every piece of hard data you get, that can allow you to project a more concrete future that you can believe in. Then you're not just picking numbers out of random air. You're actually spotting the market. When James Welton came to me and he said what he said, it gave birth to Coder Dojo. Now, what did he say? Well, he was at Pres and he was doing his leaving cert, and he was upset because the computer club he founded at Pres was going to be disbanded when he left the school. And it was. And he didn't think that was good because it was vibrant. You know, there's lots of kids coming. And I said, how did it start? And he said, well, I learned computers in my bedroom like we all do, and then I won a Junior Spider Award from ICOM. I said, okay, but how did that start the computer club? And he said, well, the school principal announced this over the intercom. And then a miracle happened. People, kids of all ages, sought him out. And not to beat him up because he was a nerd, but to learn from him, which is a kind of amazing thing. And when I heard that, he sort of said it offhand, but when I heard that, I thought, perfect market test. A random announcement in a random school caused cross-demographic seeking behavior for the nerd for a good reason. No better market test than that. And it showed me a customer sweet spot. Kids of that age. That's a perfect customer sweet spot for Coder Dojo. It's targeted. When you test, you want to look at precisely, define exactly what your customer sweet spot is. You want to know what is your perfect market. Even if you're intending to sell to the whole world, find the best market first. Find that low-hanging fruit that is so elusive. Well, actually use testing to find it. Listen for who is your ideal customer and go after them, and then measure what they do. Right? Don't measure what they say, because what they say will be lies. Measure what they do with your product. You know, one of the Products Accelerator, we were just interviewing them today, and he said, oh, you know, I'm not sure which way to go with my brand. And I said, well, do you know who's buying the product? And because he's selling through retailers, he said, no, I don't. I said, well, find out. If you have to even go and watch who walks out of the store with a bottle and doorstop them afterwards and say, hey, why did you do that? Find what your customers do. And then put that into your presentation as well. Like, you've told the story, you're going to need to put in some numbers. And those numbers have to be credible. And I personally think that it's best to put those numbers in not as a sheet, not as a table, but as an infographic. People want to see a little picture, and what does that number actually mean? One infographic can express more about the power of your business, about how authentic it is, and about how good an investment it is, than any number of spreadsheets, any number of PowerPoints. Relentless authenticity comes from really, really, really testing and then expressing that as clearly as you can. And the more crystal clarity you bring in that like one-page summary of how the business works, that's just awesome. That's the more you will convince people. Because once they've heard your story, the disbelief suspension stops, and then they need clarity. And that infographic or that very clear, robust, tested model is going to serve you incredibly well. Plus, it also will help you focus your attention. I mean, if you produce that kind of clarity, it means you have to have that kind of clarity. And so many businesses I see don't have that kind of clarity. You know, there's a little wishy-washy here, a little wishy-washy there, and a bit of loosey-goosey this. And a lot of money, time, and effort gets wasted because of a whole lot of theories that are just completely untested. And, you know, even complex engineering can be derailed by this. You know, years and years and years ago, I did a little consulting job, and the guy I was working with, you know, I was just like fixing the computers, but he was this very high-powered scientist, and he was at BHP's roll and bar plant, right? And they make rolls of steel that are as big as this room, right? And they weigh tons. And the last process, part of the process in this steel, is what they call acid treatment. And they actually take this sheet and they put it through this huge bath of chemicals, and they boil it in this bath of chemicals, and then it goes out the other end. And one of the line managers said, why do we heat the chemicals? And nobody had the answer. And they went back through the process and they went back through the design, and it turned out that someone just thought, well, maybe it'd be a good idea. Cost them $5 million a quarter to heat the chemicals because they had to have all sorts of special stuff to make it hot. So they switched off all the heaters, and guess what? It worked perfectly. Because to somebody's hypothesis, millions of dollars were just being thrown away. Just thrown away. So test, and then clarify, and then express, and make it neat. That infographic, by the way, goes to all your staff. Right? They should all know how you make money, because then they won't mess with it. You know, everybody has a new and good idea. And here's another thing. New staff are the worst, because they want to prove themselves to you. So they will attack your hypothesis. They will attack everything they can to try and prove how good they are. That actually dilutes your intellectual capital. If you have a nice, clear, graphical representation that shows the clarity of your model, you're never going to get diluted. Every new person's going to buy into that, and you're going to keep going. That's the last bit.